when you realize that you keep sacrificing yourself and your time in service to others, which is fine and also warranted sometimes in some seasons. And then for me, at least, I will say, I got to the point where I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I like to do anymore. I don't have any time devoted to myself. We sacrifice for our kids and our families and our community and our parents and grandparents and siblings and on and on and on. And how do you then reinsert yourself back in the priority list?
Welcome to Evoke Greatness, the podcast for bold leaders and big dreamers who refuse to settle. I'm your host, Sonnie, CEO, entrepreneur, and someone who's spent over 20 years building, leading, and learning what it really takes to rise. Every step of that journey has taught me something worth passing on. Lessons in business, leadership, resilience, and the psychology behind it all. Here, you'll hear raw conversations, unfiltered truths, and the kind of wisdom that ignites something deeper in you, your courage, your conviction, and your calling. This show will help you think bigger, lead better, and show up bolder in every part of your life and business. This is your place to grow. Let's rise together. You run a team, you build businesses, and you show up for everyone around you. But that one closet, that stack of paper that has been sitting there for 3 months, yep, it's still there. Today's guest is Lisa Woodruff, founder of Organize 365, and she is here to tell you that that is not a you problem. It's actually a systems problem, and there's a way out. Let's hop into it. Welcome back to another episode of Evoke Greatness. Today's episode is for every high-performing woman who can run a meeting, close a deal, lead a team, but Lord, you open your closet and immediately you feel overwhelmed. Or you have the stack of paper that feels far heavier than it should. Or someone who quietly thinks, how can I build a business, but I can't get my home systems under control? My guest today is Lisa Woodruff, the founder of Organize 365, a platform that has helped hundreds of thousands of women create functional systems for their homes, paperwork, and their lives. She's in the pre-launch of her brand new book, Escaping Quicksand. And in this context, quicksand isn't just emotional. It's the piles, it's the unfinished systems, the invisible mental load, and it's the constant decision fatigue. Because quicksand doesn't happen overnight. It accumulates. One paper, one project, one postponed decision at a time. And what I love about her work is this. Organization is not about color-coded bins. It's really about freedom. And it's about reclaiming mental capacity, creating space for the life and leadership that you're actually called to live. So if you've ever felt successful in one area of your life, but quietly feel a little buried in another, this conversation for you is going to feel like oxygen. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Delighted. Well, as I said before we hit record, selfishly, I was excited to have this conversation because we've crested the beginning of the year. We have lots of things that we want to get done this year. And then those piles, they start to slowly build up kind of quietly in the background. And so I just thought to myself, gosh, I really need to kind of get a hold of things in my house. I know for me, that makes me mentally, physically, psychologically feel better, feel clearer. It's advice I give to my boys all the time. If you get your room straightened up, how do you walk into that space and they're like, I know, Mom, I feel better. I'm like, I know. So I'm sure that there are a lot of other people in the same boat as I am. And so I look forward to diving into this conversation. Before we go forward and share, I like to go backwards a little bit. I'm curious, when did you first recognize that there was a real need for this kind of organizational guidance? Not just the tips, but like an actual framework.
Yeah, I think it was, in hindsight, you could see a couple of different leaps. So I think when I was a kid, my mom was not organized. She was an artist, very creative. And I knew that my being organized literally was a gift to her. It was my Christmas gift every year. I would organize her craft room for her. So I knew I had a gift that could help her stay more organized. And then when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was a school teacher and then a stay-at-home mom. I would, during play dates or when was in other teachers' classrooms, be like, hey, do you mind if I organize your teacher closet? Do you mind if I like organize the toys while we're in the toy room? And everybody's always like, not at all. Like, have fun. As a matter of fact, we're going to have the play date in the kitchen tomorrow and you're going to do the pantry. And I would love it. So I knew it was a gift that I could give people. And I really love that. I love being a helper. And it was really after I got disorganized myself and really didn't even recognize my house by the time I was turning 40. I'd been in such a long slide into the pit of despair, is what I like to say. And I woke up at 40 and I was like, I didn't even recognize my house. I didn't recognize the stuff we had. I didn't even remember bringing it into the house. And I know I did because I'm the accumulator of everything. And so I got myself organized again. And in the process of that, I started the company Organized 365 and started professionally organizing women in Cincinnati. And that's when I realized that so many of us, life gets moving too fast. It runs us over. And the wreckage behind us is all of the chaos in the house. And that in order to get organized again, often you're leaving one season and going into the next. So when you're going to get organized again, you try to get organized in the season that you just left with those same skill sets. And they don't serve you into the season you're going into. And I realized that our houses actually need different organization as we evolve and grow through adulthood.
Love that. I am so much about seasons, and how we show up to different seasons is very, very different. Our
Mm-hmm.
priorities in different seasons are very, very different. But I love the idea of that. And it kind of has me thinking, how much does the Amazon immediate gratification, click a button, it shows up to your doorstep? Not that I've personally struggled with that, but my husband would beg to differ. But we
Mm-hmm.
can easily order things and they are on our doorstep. And then it just piles and piles and piles.
Yeah, I've never been asked that question, but I have thought about it.
Yeah.
So I'm 54. So Amazon became a thing like in my mid 40s, and it saved my hiney because I don't go to stores. Like I stopped going to stores long before COVID. Like I already was picking up my groceries and having Amazon deliver almost everything because I just was stretched too thin. I didn't have any time to go to the stores. So for me, it's been a blessing. But I see my kids in their 20s. There's no there's no friction between wanting and needing something and getting it.
Right.
And I have no idea how they are going to be able to have that waiting to get things, that saving up to get things, or that ability, that wait time in order to realize, okay, yeah, you could buy this for $20 now because you perceive it as a need, but you don't realize you have a $40 bigger need coming after this, and then you're not going to have the money for that. It concerns me, but I don't have any solution.
Yeah, I just think about our
Mhm.
accumulation of things has probably, my guess
Yeah.
is, someone needs to do some research on this because it truly, it is a thing, the accumulation of things. Unless you're constantly, what I refer to as, I do like an once a year purge where I get rid of all of these things and then I feel so much
Mhm.
better and then I start to accumulate again. And so it's like this vicious cycle. So there's a research paper, a white paper there, waiting for someone to do. I'm curious if there was a moment when you realized that women, as you started in with this work around organization and helping people declutter and get that sense of structure there, when did you realize that women weren't necessarily struggling with the clutter? Rather, sometimes it's something a little deeper.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. You were mentioning an annual purge where you get rid of things from your house, and that's very healthy. That's very normal. What I found was that, decluttering is something that's talked about a lot. Like there are lots and lots and lots of people who talk about decluttering. Decluttering is pretty easy and it's an instantaneous result and you feel great when you're done decluttering. What I noticed with some of these women was that was the only tool they had in their toolbox. And so when they were overwhelmed, they would declutter. And often when women are overwhelmed, we declutter other people's stuff. So we have 42 projects going on. We don't declutter any of those. We go in the toy room with the big black trash bag. And I'm like, okay, like I could see where you're going with this, but also you're then going to have to buy your kids more toys. It might not be the kids' toy problem. It might be the 42 unfinished projects. So maybe we need to pare that down to 12 and then actually do the projects and move on. But the secondary problem is if decluttering is the only solution you have to an organizing problem, then every time you're overwhelmed, you look to get rid of stuff, myself included.
Mm,
And I was probably 42. I'd already organized my house. And I was like, oh, I still don't feel like I am organized yet. And so I thought, well, Marie Kondo said to get rid of your books. So I did. And I had 6 different bookshelves. I had a bookshelf in every single room in my house. And I got rid of like 85% of my books. And like I had a whole bookshelf that was just books from India on homeopathy. I got rid of every single one. And I was like, yeah, because, it's all online and we're going to be digital. I regret that to this day. I now have, 4 big bookshelves that are full, but there's still, I'll go for a book and be like, oh, yeah, right. You decluttered that. Every book I own, I've read and highlighted. Like, I'm not a person that buys them as like it's a museum. I use this library. I love physical books. And so I regretted that decluttering. And I started to notice with my clients that they would want to declutter more. And I was like, no, let's organize. They're like, no, I need to have less. I need to have less. And I would say, well, let's organize it first and then maybe decide if you need less. Because if you over declutter, then you sometimes are reticent to get rid of things when you should declutter because then you have regret from the last time that you decluttered. So there's a cycle. You declutter, then you get organized. Then with whatever level you have left, you can increase productivity and you start the cycle over and over again.
How much do you see that people's identity, as you start this work, I'm sure it probably feels surface early on. It's like, oh, this is just an organization project.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's got to be almost a sense of intimacy in the process, right? And I use that word. Some people don't like that word. But when we're talking about our stuff and our emotions, and sometimes our identity is tied to those things,
Mm-hmm.
how do you help women in peeling back their identity from their stuff?
Well, I think when you work with a professional organizer, part of being able to voice that to the organizer is in saying it, you remove yourself from that object and then you could see it more objectively because you just want to share the experience. I found that a lot. There was one woman I'm thinking of. She had 6 children and she was a stay-at-home mom. And in her basement, she had a plastic tub for each child for every single grade. And it had everything in it, every newsletter, every spelling test, every scholastic book order form. It had every single piece of paper that child had touched for every single grade. So there were like, I don't know, 108 bins in the basement. And I said, okay, let me turn these into binders because then the kids can look at them and they'll tell stories and you'll love it. And I'm going to get rid of all the newsletters and scholastic book orders and spelling tests because we really don't need those. What we need are their handprints and the first time they wrote their name and their stories that they wrote. And she was like, okay, you can do that. And she said, but the reason I have the 108 bins is because that wall of bins says that I was a good mom. It is the visual representation of me being the stay-at-home mom because I don't have any other visual representation of that. And she was now divorced and working. And she was like, that is me looking at that as like, you were a good mom. You were a good mom.
That just brought a tear to my eye and gave me goosebumps because
Mhm.
there's a part of me that can identify with that because we hold these things and that's where it starts to form this identity or this emotional piece of us. But the way you approached it, like gave her permission to kind of share that piece. But that is a part of that intimacy and trust in the process of not having someone do what you did, which was like, I wish I wouldn't have gotten rid of those books. So you don't want to have someone to
Right.
have regret when it comes to it either.
Yeah, you don't have to have all of it. She didn't need 108 bins. What we ended up with was about 2-inch albums for each child, organized chronologically. And then I left them all on the family room table. And she came back from a long trip and the kids came back from school. And she walked in after they'd come back from school and they were just looking at the books and they were laughing and they were telling stories. And she was like, this is so much better. We are enjoying the memories together. The kids are really enjoying them and they have them. And I get to experience their school years with them again as they look through these books. It's better than having it in the bins, but it takes time to organize them. And really, I am really big on there should be no memories in your storage room. They should be in a binder, in a scrapbook, framed, like in a memory box that you pull out, like enjoy all of those things with your family because they'll start telling stories that you've never heard before.
Okay, quick pause to tell you about my partners at Row Nutrition. I came to them as a customer first. I have both Hashimoto's and I am smack dab in the middle of perimenopause. Their liposomal supplements have been a game changer for my brain fog, fatigue, and inflammation. I'm currently taking their NAD+, glutathione, and curcumin, and I recently added in both collagen and creatine. Anyone who knows me knows I only put my name behind what I actually use, and Row has earned it. You can use the code SONNIE15, SONNIE15 for 15% off at rownutrition.com, or you can click the link in the show notes and it'll take you right there. All right, let's hop back into the episode. I love that. I love that. And it allows that to be useful and productive, like where you can actually enjoy it versus seeing it the once or twice a year when you go in the attic or, whatever it is. And knowing that they're in there, but when else do you get to enjoy them? So I love that story because I think a lot of people can probably resonate with that. In the context of organization, what does quicksand really look like?
So I've written some organization books, how to organize your paper, how to organize your life, how to organize in different phases of life, how to organize with ADHD. So I was getting ready to write another how to organize something book. And I was like, we really need a precursor book. We need a book for before you even get to the organizing. When you're like, I'm literally with negative minutes in my day. I know I'm going down and I can't find anybody to help me. I know I have to solve my own problem, but I don't even know how. And that's how I felt as I was turning 40. Like my parents had gotten divorced. My dad had gotten sick. He had ultimately passed away. The world economy collapsed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, how much lower can we possibly go? Like, I feel like I'm at rock bottom. And then I realized I was sinking further into quicksand. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I've got to get out of this pit of despair. But how do you do it? And so in hindsight, now in my 50s, I can look back and see, yes, I got organized in my 40s, but also I made some significant mindset shifts. And that is how I actually got organized and stayed organized. Because many people can get organized and then they are unorganized and then organized and then unorganized. But how do you really change your mindset so that you get and stay organized?
Why do smart, capable, high-achieving women, why do they seem to sink the fastest?
Well, we take on the care of others and we stop caring for ourselves. I mean, I think that is ultimately, and I don't really think there is a way to not do it that way. Like, you almost have to say, no, I'll take that on. I'll take that on. I'll take that on. I'll take that on. And they're like, you know what? I'm going under. And when you realize that you keep sacrificing yourself and your time in service to others, which is fine and also warranted sometimes in some seasons. And then for me, at least, I will say, I got to the point where I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I like to do anymore. I don't have any time devoted to myself. I keep forgetting to put my deodorant on. Like, I can't remember the last time I washed my hair. Like when I was turning 40, I had 3 outfits in my closet that still fit my body because I kept buying clothes for my kids, buying clothes for everybody else. We didn't have any money. So I didn't have any clothes that fit anymore. And I just kept wearing those 3 outfits on repeat. And I was like, at some point, I have to replace this holy underwear. And I don't mean in the godly sense. Like, I deserve to have like some underwear without holes. And like 7 outfits would be nice, like enough to make it through 1 week. Like, it shouldn't be, I have 2 pairs of jeans and that's it. That's all I had. And we sacrifice for our kids and our families and our community and our parents and grandparents and siblings and on and on and on. And how do you then reinsert yourself back in the priority list? How do you then say, I don't need to be above everybody else. I don't need to be selfish and have all of the time, but also I do have physical needs. I have emotional needs. I have clothing needs. And these kids are going to not even wear some of these clothes that I'm going to buy for them. I will wear whatever I buy for years and years and years. I could get a 3rd pair of jeans. I could get a 2nd set of shoes. I could get some new underwear. And that is really hard to do because often when you realize that you need to reassert yourself and put yourself on the list of priorities, it's when you're depleted, the financials are depleted, the whole family is depleted, and you're like, and now I'm going to put myself in the list. They're like, there's no resources left for you. And so it is a slow rebuilding over time where that you're not above the family or whoever you live with, but you are included with the family and your needs and priorities are a part of the entire family.
What are the most common mistakes women make when they're trying to organize their way out of that sense of overwhelm?
I think that we look to, or I'll just speak for myself. I know what I did is I looked to what does done look like? And then I tried to make that picture work, like all color coordinated bins that were labeled. And so I would do that and I would forget what was in the bins because I'm not good if you can't see what's in the bins. Or I would solve a problem that was, I'd solve a pantry that wasn't really dysfunctional. It just didn't look like it should be on Instagram. So I'd make it look really pretty. But what I really needed to do was solve the problem in my storage room because I didn't remember what I had down there and I kept rebuying things that I already had. But it was more satisfying to replicate what somebody had on Pinterest in their pantry, even though that wasn't the problem, because I thought if it looked good, then I would feel better. And the truth of the matter was it cost a lot of money. I couldn't figure out how to use it, and it didn't really change my everyday life. So once I started realizing that, okay, well, I'll just be a functional organizer. Like nothing in my house is even labeled. That might surprise you. But my house looks good. And I know where everything is. And everybody in the family knows where everything is. I don't have cute containers. Nothing is labeled. But my entire house is organized. Everything. And so changing what done looks like was a huge mindset shift for me.
Yeah. How much of clutter is actually about decision fatigue and executive function?
Yeah. Yep. A lot. A lot. Decision fatigue, executive function, and just lack of time. I often will say, if you see a house where the housework is undone, the laundry isn't done, dishes are piling up, the house isn't as clean as it usually is, you are seeing a woman who hit her max a long time ago in the invisible load, and now you're seeing it in the physical ramification. Fold something. Like, don't judge her. Do a dish and fold something. And then see if you can help. Be like, what else can I do to help you? Like, how about if I bring a meal? And how about if you go to bed? So that's one thing. Delayed decisions, yes. Yes, it is delayed decisions because you're not really sure what to do with it and if you can get rid of it yet or who else might need it. A lot of clutter for a lot of my clients was, I don't need this anymore. I already know I don't need it anymore. But I don't want it to go in a landfill because I don't want to hurt the environment. And also, I don't want to be wasteful of the resources that I invested in. I either want to be able to make some money back, sometimes hard to do, or I want to give it to somebody who needs it. And until I can find somebody who needs it, I can't get rid of it. And so getting rid of your clutter becomes this charitable project that ends up taking more time that you don't have. Some of the things I would say that when I was turning 40, I decided to have a big garage sale. You will make no money, by the way. I think I made $400 and I saved stuff for 4 months, but that's fine. We needed the $400. It was a great exercise in futility. So I did make some of the money. And my rule was at the end of the garage sale, it was always all going to Goodwill. Now I've researched Goodwill in my area. They employ the people that need work that are, have disadvantaged needs. And also the people who are disadvantaged in our area get Goodwill bucks and they're actually able to go in and shop with that money from the community. So I really like what Goodwill does and they recycle in my community. May not be the same in yours. There are a lot of other charities in our community that we use as well that will give to people. So you can give it to charities that will do the work for you versus you finding every single thing. So delayed decision making. Let's talk about executive function and ADHD. So we're all deficient in some executive functions. ADHD is just it's a spectrum disorder. And so when your deficiencies in some of your executive functions rise to the level in which you need some kind of intervention or support, then it's often labeled ADHD. But no one has perfect executive function. And there are actually 8 executive functions. So I do have a book, How ADHD Affects Home Organization. I specifically, as a school teacher, take those definitions of ADHD and then show you how that works in your household. And usually the answer is to hire someone. Like if you have ADHD and you have a hard time getting started, staying on task, staying focused, being organized, this is your executive functions. It is really helpful to have a helper. It could be a professional organizer, but it could also be a really good friend or a sibling or, a neighbor that just wants to chat like me and I'll clean out your pantry while we chat with our kids. Just say, yes, please. And let me open this door for you. And let me open this door for you. The thing I find with ADHD specifically is they usually are able to maintain a system. They have a hard time setting up the system. And so once you get a system set up, they usually are able to maintain it, especially for a certain period of time. And then often they need help resetting the system. Now, in that book, I have a 3-step process that gets you started in any room. And I taught that to my children. And now today my kids can organize. They get overwhelmed. And then they'll start going through the 3 steps and then they don't call me back and I'll talk to them a day or two later, whatever happened. They're like, oh, well, I got organized. I just had to get started. I just needed a script to get started.
Can you maybe go through high level, those 3 steps?
Yeah, they're super easy. So whenever you go into any space, the first thing you do is you pick up all the laundry because I don't care what room you're in. There's always laundry, socks, coats, whatever. Pick up all the laundry, either put it in the laundry room or put it away. Second thing is grab a trash bag and pick up all the trash because wherever you are, there's always trash. And the third thing is food and dishes. Unless you're a family that only eats in your kitchen, and then I don't know how you do that, but congratulations. We eat all over our house. So food and dishes. So once you've got the laundry going, you've got the trash going, you got the food and dishes going, sometimes the room is good enough and you could be done. But often then you're like, okay, now I'm going to tackle this corner. I'm going to go clockwise. I'm going to work on this project because now you're in motion. You've done a couple of things and you've started this script for yourself.
The part that you described where you talk about having the things and knowing you don't need them anymore, but knowing that they're things that someone else can use, you described in
Yeah.
my life to a T. We have been going through this where I like to periodically redo my office. And these things are functional. And so I don't want to just go drop them somewhere or throw them away or even donate them if I can get rid of them. And again, like make some money back, great. Except for those things sat in my office in a corner. Then I eventually moved them downstairs in a corner. And then I finally said, load everything up to my boys and just go take it to Goodwill. I have to be done. I cannot keep doing this. But there is that pull of like, well, dang, it shouldn't just go to waste. So I definitely see like that emotional connection to it. And it may not even be because I'm attached to it. It's just because I know that it is functional and useful for someone, just not for me anymore. Okay, this is where we hit the pause button. That was part 1, and we are just getting warmed up. In part 2, Lisa gets into the stuff that's going to hit differently. What a real system looks like, what your clutter is actually costing your leadership, and the one message from her book that every woman who feels behind needs to hear. Make sure to come back next week for part 2. Okay, stay with me for just a second before you go. Living with Hashimoto's and being in the middle of perimenopause means brain fog shows up in the middle of conversations, decisions, and moments that matter. And I refuse to stay there. I'm very selective about what I put in my body. Intentional. So when Meraki Blue came to me wanting to support this community, I said yes because I already believed in what they do. Methylene Blue, mitochondrial health, cognitive performance, mental clarity. It works for me. I want it to work for you too. Meraki Blue is giving the Evoke Greatness community 20% off. Use the code EVOKE Greatness, all caps, no spaces at checkout. I promise you, your brain isn't broken. It's just waiting on the right support. If today's episode challenged you, moved you, or lit a fire in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's ready to rise in their leadership, their business, and their life. And if you haven't already, I'd be so grateful if you took 30 seconds to rate and review the podcast. It's one of the most powerful ways to support the show and help us reach more bold leaders like you. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. We're not here to play small. We're here to lead loud and elevate how we think, lead, and execute, one bold and unapologetic step at a time. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and make moves that make mediocre uncomfortable.